Hello, this is William Glasse on Sunday, the 21st of June, bringing you the recorded sermon for the Ipswich Circuit of the Methodist Church for this week. Thank you for joining me. The overall theme of our service this morning is devotion in the context of costly love. Psalm 86 and verse 2 says, "Preserve my life, for I am devoted to you. Save your servant who trusts in you." This is a prayer from someone who is facing difficulties, but yet who knows that God is reliable and has faith in that God. As a word, devotion feels comfortable, doesn't it? And warm. It's something that we express. We talk about our devotion for a theme or a person or a place. And it's how we also might describe the relationships between people. We say they are devoted to one another, or they have been long and devoted to their marriage and their family, and so on. In the Bible, devotion doesn't always involve our traditional sense of the meaning of the word, because devotion also is about love that is complicated and sometimes costly. Not financially costly necessarily, but emotionally costly, and which puts a strain on many aspects of life. Abraham's family was complicated, and Jesus sought to redefine family in the passage that we shared from the Gospel. Abraham learned that devotion to God leads to a promise, but he also experienced painful sacrifice. By Jesus' definition, the price of gaining one family may be the expense of weakening or even severing ties with another one. We have, from time to time, to make choices. The verse from Psalm 86 reminds us of why this apparently self-inflicted pain is worth it, and it builds and strengthens the most reliable bond we will ever make, and that is the bond between ourselves and God, a bond that is inviolable. The language of trust comes out of this verse. "Preserve my life, for I am devoted to you." That isn't a passing feeling. It's not something that we just enjoy for a minute or two. It is about trust that holds fast when life becomes hard. So let's dig a little deeper. Genesis 21 brings us the concept of the pain of separation, and we can't dress it up. The account we read seems to add insult to injury for Hagar. First, she carries the child of her master, Abraham, and then she's banished. But the other side of the story is a picture of pain as well. Sarah is the wife of Abraham, and she also has a son against all the odds at great age. What should be a story of overflowing joy becomes a picture of potentially divided loyalties and of compromise. There are many people among us in the real world in which we live who can relate to that sort of tension and distress. Families with complicated relationships. A solution is required in the case of Abraham's families, and it's a tough one. Hagar and the little lad Ishmael are sent away so Abraham can be less torn and Sarah can stop looking over her shoulder. But that cost seems to be borne almost entirely by Hagar, and it seems harsh. This is family breakdown at its most painful, or rather, family tension at its most painful. Love, status, and belonging all knotted together. But it doesn't end there, because having been banished, then comes the wilderness. For Hagar, the long road, the journey, the travelling, not easy, the emptying water skin, the running out of the resources needed for sustenance, and the child beneath the bush, realizing that life can't go on, and so Hagar abandons the little lad to die of hunger. And then she has to turn away because she can't bear to watch. And how our hearts ache for her, because could we watch that? Our own child starve to death? And just as the watching becomes unbearable, God rewards Hagar's devotion to him with a display of his love and constancy. And it feels as though we should have expected a happy ending. Preserve my life, for I am devoted to you, the psalmist says. Save your servant who trusts in you. Well, will he? Can he? In a situation like that, with little sign of where the happy ending can come from, we may well be left feeling bemused by a situation that seems as though it has been engineered by God. Is God really setting out to be brutal? But then God hears the boy's cry. He speaks into the fear of Hagar, the mother anticipating losing the little chap. She opens her eyes and she sees the well. And then, blessing on top of blessings, God stays with Ishmael as he grows and blesses him. And that's a story for another day, but it is far from a tragic ending. I wonder, was the well there all along? Did God dig it instantly by a miracle? No, surely not. It was there. Should that devoted servant Hagar have known that God would provide and looked up and around her? Well, perhaps. But how often do we look up and around us when we are in pain, when we feel abandoned and lost by life, and sense the irony in our devotion to God? Those are the times when it's hard to look and step back and trust. Maybe we're not in the wilderness, but many of us can relate to this on one level or another. The great lesson, tough as it is that God's devotion does not always keep us out of the wilderness. But it does mean we're not left there on our own. Preserve my life, for I am devoted to you, is not only the psalmist's prayer, it is Hagar's cry as well. In our own day, we see echoes of Hagar in displaced families in conflict zones. They're in our news media all the time, carrying children through fear and uncertainty, not knowing where safety will come from. God's love reaches the excluded, the frightened, and the forgotten. The aid efforts that we all support, the prayers we offer, the focus we put on the horror of a brutal world, and our attempts to raise the awareness of others to those brutal horrors are all about the provision of Hagar's well. In another story, Hagar would never have looked up. She would not have seen the well, and Ishmael may have died. The world is cruel, but God is there for us if only we can trust and see a bigger perspective than mortality. And that brings us then on to the cost of following, which is described for us by Jesus in the record set by Matthew in chapter 10 of his gospel. You're going to have heard this spelt out before. Sermons have been preached and books written about the cost of discipleship. Jesus outlined the point in this passage recorded by Matthew for us today, but it's implied elsewhere too. To follow him is not to choose an easy life. He speaks of misunderstanding, of rejection, and of division, even within households. He's not praising conflict. He's telling the truth that loyalty to God can expose deep fault lines in our relationships. And in purely human terms, it should be said that there's no point in persisting with such recklessness. It is senseless to open yourself up to strife and disruption. Why would you do it? In our world, at a time of international crisis, it's often ordinary households that bear the weight most sharply. Now, as the picture of inflation starts to turn red, not green, families know what this is all about, as what's going on in the Middle East impacts us all. Anxiety around the kitchen table because what was affordable last week is not. Stretched budgets and burdens shaped by political decisions that are far beyond our reach and sphere of influence. So why do we put up with this? What is it that our text conceals that unlocks the reason for persisting in something that seems counterintuitive and looking towards heaven when earth seems to be on fire? No, we can't do anything about the political machinations of the world around us now, but we could walk away from God and at least get rid of that tension. Preserve my life, for I'm devoted to you. Save your servant who trusts in you. When we stop, a bit like Hagar waiting for the awful thing to happen, when we reflect, we know our lives are full of flaws. The sort of familial tensions that we see in Hagar's story and Abraham's treatment of her are ours too. And running through all of those tangles is the common strand of God's love that is not breakable, and the sense that he values us. Not one sparrow falls without the Father knowing, Jesus said, and we're worth a lot more than many sparrows, we are assured. The call to costly discipleship rests within the promise of God's attentive care. We're asked for devotion because we are first held in devotion. He doesn't say, love us, love me, and then I may love you. He says, I have loved you, so respond by loving me. And the prayer returns, preserve my life, for I'm devoted to you. When things seem to be hopeless and God is irrelevant in our muddles, those are the times when having a deep sense of value stabilizes us with the inexplicable peace of God that passes all understanding. It may be irrational, but to every one of us who has sensed it and known it and lives with it, it is real. If we look carefully, we see the evidence around us that those who have faith are healthier and happier than others, notwithstanding the challenges that come. Recent surveys of health have said the faith communities contain within them people who are better in so many different ways, mentally and physically. And it's not an accident that that's the case. So pulling these strands together, many of us know all of these varying tensions. Sometimes faithfulness to Christ means hard choices about family loyalty, when love does not mean agreement, when truth must be spoken gently, or when boundaries must be held. We see that costly love in parents who hold a family together quietly, carrying worry in one hand and hope in the other, can be strenuous. And perhaps for many of us, devotion is lived out not in dramatic moments, but in small daily acts of faithfulness. Like me, many of you will recognize these things. the prayer that we speak before the day begins, the kindness offered when patience is thin, when we just stop and are able to be there for someone else despite having no time, the honest words spoken when silence would be just so much easier, the quiet decision to keep trusting God. All of that is part of what it means to say, "Preserve my life, for I am devoted to you." The same is true in friendships and in the workplace, where discipleship may call us to integrity rather than to silence, courage rather than to convenience, and compassion rather than conformity. I have made myself unpopular by saying things that the business needs to hear, even though it chooses not to want to hear them. Many of you too may well have done that. And there is deep devotion in believers who quietly live out their faith at work, showing kindness under pressure and standing with those who are overlooked. Costly love is harshness and devotion, is not harshness and devotion. It's not self-righteous. It's truth and honor. It's hearing the grievance from an employee when the business thinks it knows what the outcome will be, and you make an opposite judgment. Christian devotion is shaped by the God who sees Hagar in the wilderness and by the Christ who walks the road of the cross. So our calling's simple, though far from easy. It's to receive God's devotion to us, because that's where the story begins. It's to answer with devotion to God, because that is where our responsing starts. To let that love flow out to neighbours, friends, colleagues, and everyone with whom life is strained, as well as all those who it's easy to love. Save your servant who trusts in you becomes not only a plea, it becomes a way of life. And so, let's share a prayer. Lord, preserve our life, for we are devoted to you. When we feel abandoned, remind us that we are never beyond your care. When discipleship becomes costly, hold us steady. When love asks more of us than we thought we could give, grant us wisdom, grant us courage, and grant us grace. So may our devotion to you become a blessing in our homes, in our workplaces, and in the wider world, for the sake of Jesus Christ our Lord, who gave his life for us, and to whom be honour and praise now and forevermore. Amen.